We started Stax Payments. That journey, took off from just the two of us to almost 500 people, nearly 200 million in recurring revenue. We got to recap the business twice. And so, we raised over $245 million of capital. We sold the business for a little over $1 billion 2 years ago. Interesting question as an entrepreneur. You always you hear $1 billion exit or you see these things. And I think there's this mountaintop that all of us put, right? Like whatever that mountaintop for you is, if it's, I want to sell my business for $1 billion, I want to take it public. I think when we reach that mountaintop, it's fun for a moment. And I think what you realize in that moment is that the journey was actually way, that was the experience with the journey getting there. It's really blessed to have had a great outcome, but I think it was about building a legacy and continuously doing what we were really good at. And so I got into a room once again with my sister and I was like, we got to figure something out. We have to do something here. And that's what led to our newest company, which is called Worth.
Welcome back to Grow and Learn, talking to Sal Rehmetullah today about his $1 billion exit journey and about building yet another super fast growing and so it seems very successful company on the road to be a game changer in the SME lending worldwide. It's present in 186 countries. Welcome, Sal.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So this is an impressive entrepreneurial story that you shared with me. Could you give us a bit of a background of how it all started? Basically, who you are and why I'm speaking to you today.
I appreciate it, Suneera. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and absolutely would love to. So yeah, Sal Rehmetullah, very nice to meet the audience. A bit of background for me, journey-wise, born in the States, but lived internationally and all over the world, actually. Went to 10 schools, 12 years, bounced around a lot. And so, entrepreneurship for me and for us, I would say being a Muslim immigrant in the United States was something our parents shared as a necessity, right? When you turn around Instagram and all these other things, you see entrepreneurship as this really cool and amazing thing that everybody just gets to sit around and build a company. The reality is when my parents migrated to the United States, they didn't have college degrees. They didn't have a big education. And, they had to either buy a business, build a business, work in a convenience store, or own a laundromat or whatever it may be. And those are the things that were the birth of entrepreneurship for us, because that was the only place that you could actually build a career. And so my sister and I grew up sort of surrounded by, my parents' businesses from when we were, 6 years old to continuously growing. And that sort of sparked the first interest of wanting to theoretically be your own boss and see what that looks like. And, after going to college and getting an education out of university, I did the corporate career path. I worked for the Morgan Stanleys and Deloitte and all the other things that you could imagine. I worked for a large startup out in San Francisco and did the Silicon Valley thing and got to ring the New York Stock Exchange bell. And all those, were great experiences. But wanted to get back to my roots, which is entrepreneurship. And so, ironically enough, my sister called out of all people and said, hey, I have this great idea in payments. We should, start a payments company. And this is 2014, 2015 timeframe, where, payments was sort of an archaic, old school situation at this point. There wasn't a lot of, the word Fintech hadn't been invented yet, is what I would describe it as. And so we started a company called Stax Payments, which was basically an integrated payment company supporting small businesses to be able to take credit cards. So think in a digital wave where people were getting more online shopping carts and mobile readers and being able to take payments on their phone. We were trying to figure out how you can connect all of that together. So we wanted to build a solution set that small businesses could have access to being able to have an online store, being able to have payments on their phone. And there was nothing that had connected that together. And so we started Stax Payments. That journey, took off from just the two of us to almost 500 people, nearly 200 million in recurring revenue. We got to recap the business twice. And so, we raised over $245 million of capital. We sold the business for a little over $1 billion 2 years ago. And we're the first unicorn founders out of Central Florida, first Muslim founders to do it, first brother sister combo to do it. And it was just an amazing journey to be able to not only build an amazing platform to support small businesses, but to be able to do it with family and create a ton of people along the way to be able to do it.
You sold the business for 1 billion without IPOing?
Without IPOing, correct. So that was sold to private equity. So we sold it twice to private equity, two little chunks. Still a large owner in the business. So, we still own a portion of the business. It's great business, big fans of it. No longer in the day-to-day, but yes, private equity.
Wow. Fascinating. Yeah.
No,
and what happened afterwards?
It's an interesting question as an entrepreneur. You always you hear a $1 billion exit or you see these things, and I think there's this mountaintop that all of us put, right? Like whatever that mountaintop for you is. If it's I want to sell my business for $1 billion, I want to take it public. I think when we reach that mountaintop, it's fun for a moment. And I think what you realize in that moment is that the journey was actually way that was the experience, with the journey getting there. It's not really the end solution set. And so I think it was fun, but I think then there was a somber feeling of once we sold the business, it was kind of if you've ever lost a parent or lost a dog or whatever it may be, you have this loss of purpose. I don't know how else to describe it. And I think it started to kick in of my identity was, Sal Rehmetullah, president and founder of Stax. That's just what I said. And when you lose that, I think it was just different trying to figure out who I was as an individual without this thing that I've spent, 10 years building. And so, I did the traveling, I golfed, I did all the things that you have. And I think it just came back to the fact that I wanted to build again, and not because of making money or any of those things. We're really blessed to have had a great outcome. But I think it was about building a legacy and continuously doing what we were really good at. And so I got into a room once again with my sister, and I was like, we got to figure something out. We have to do something here. And that's what led to our newest company, which is called Worth.
All right. Wow. What a story. And how has your cooperation with your sister been? I mean, clearly it's turned out to be very profitable. You're joined by her again.
Yeah. Look,
how does that work? It doesn't
people always ask the question, what's harder, making $1 billion company or working with your sister? And I think it just depends on the day. No, it's for anybody that's worked with family, I think there's a uttermost level of trust that exists, right? We both have wildly different skill sets. We probably approach the same problem in different manners, but we want the same goal and outcome. And I think that when you can have alignment as a leadership team or as a partnership, then you start to trust whatever path the other individual thinks is the right way, because you're both tied to the exact same outcome. And so I think it's been a wildly rewarding experience. Both of us, have grown in those roles. I think every day the job got bigger. It never got easier. We just got better, is what I would probably tell people. Is it's just part of the process. There were so many firsts that we had to learn ourselves. And yeah, so I think that's what led us to the newest conversation. And I think this time around, which I'll give you a little bit about Worth, is just one of the things that were important to us was how do we continuously give back in a legacy format. And so if you are aware of the credit systems and or loan origination or financing specifically, I'd say at least in the United States, or even financing globally, you have to assess financial risk of an individual and of the business. And so for us in the United States, we have things called FICO scores or credit scores to individuals that tie an individual to be able to understand if they're going to be able to pay something back. But nothing existed in the business world, and let alone nothing exists in the business world globally. So it doesn't matter if you own a sandwich shop, a cafe, an online store. all unique businesses and all have their own merit, but there's no way to understand how to assess them. And so that's where there's a lot of manual processes that exist. So if you're applying for a credit card, if you're opening a business checking account, if you're looking for a loan to grow your business, it's just a very, very paperwork, old school, takes time process. And we really wanted to disrupt that. And so we focused on worth, which we create a worth score. So think of it like a business credit score. So how can we assess you as a business in real time? And so we partnered with the IRS, 50 Secretary of States, every province, as you mentioned in the beginning, over 186 countries that we cover data coverage from every business that's there. So if you give me maybe 3 pieces of information on your business, I can give almost 1,100 financial data points back of your business instantly. So really not only educating the small business to how the world views their business, but also the large enterprises to be able to offer them products, offer them solution sets. And so we really wanted businesses to know their worth, and that's where the name Worth came from. And so now we're in that journey. We're about 2 years into it, and just really excited to be back at it.
Is there a way for businesses to receive KPIs where they could improve their credit score standing?
You're spot on, right? So what happens is, let's say you're a cafe and you go apply for, a $10,000 loan. If you get rejected, it just says, sorry, we're not going to give you a loan. They don't give you any other information. The reality is that they probably looked at it and they said, whatever, your rent is too high, you have too much debt, whatever the reasoning is, you just don't get to find that information out. So what our goal is to help you understand that, is to say, hey, by the way, you have concentration risk. 80% of your revenue comes from one customer. So therefore, it's tougher for you to do that. Or you have very high inventory costs. So yes, you're growing your business, but your margin is not good for people to be able to give you more money. So there's things that people just don't have the time to do. Small businesses are meant to run their business. They're the janitor, they're the secretary, they're the CFO, they're the CEO, and it's just difficult. And so how can we help them better assess this stuff while staying compliant with all these needs? And that's sort of what we try to do, both for them and for the banks. Because if you think about it, if a bank has to do the same process to underwrite a $50 million loan as they do a $5,000 loan, they're never going to give a $5,000 loan because it's too much work. So if we can simplify the process for them so they can make quicker and easier decisions to give that cafe $5,000 with a couple pieces of information, we want to empower the businesses to be able to receive that, and the enterprises to be able to make those decisions quickly.
Yeah. So on the side of the underwriters, banks, and other institutions, how do you unify these KPIs and ways of judgment when it comes to a business?
Yeah. So one, we had to get a lot of data. So, when people ask like, hey, why has this never been done before? So we had this crazy thing in 2019 called COVID. And what it did is it actually forced whether you're a business, whether you're a bank, everybody had to digitize. So everybody, the provinces, the United States government, we all put our business licenses online. We started to allow you to pay your taxes online. Everybody had direct deposit or ACH for their checks to come out. So you actually had all this wealth of information of the businesses and the governmental agencies actually come available in a digital format. Then you have all these new technologies from large language models, AI learnings, all the things that can actually process data rapidly and very quickly. So we just ended up this right convergence where for the first time, all this data was available. You had the technology to be able to parse through it, to be able to then make these assessments. And so we had to go out to every region, every province, every state, and directly integrate into that. So there was a lot of work to be able to bring all this global data together. So we sit on 242 million businesses inside of our database. And so we have to build our own proprietary database, our own technology to be able to go through all of that in real time. And that becomes the core powering engine to be able to provide all this information back. And so that was probably the toughest part about getting here is you got to get all these things right and being able to parse through that. But now, once you're able to build that foundation, then you can leverage it for some of the things that we're doing now.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us a more practical view of how you actually did that? Because in March this year, you raised the 25 million seed. So to be able to raise such a large seed check. You clearly that there needs to be a lot of work done up front. So I suppose all
Yeah.
of that work of gathering all of these 224 million business accounts was already done up front, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
How did you manage to do this as
yeah, no,
well?
I appreciate it. I'll answer both questions, right?
Yeah.
So, this is it's not, when we look back at our Stacks journey, it's like a 10-year overnight success, right? So nothing happens in a minute, right? You have to kind of go through all these instances. We started off by some partnerships. So we partnered with Equifax. We partnered with, Zoom Info and other large databases that exist in the world, and first started to either buy, procure, or partner to bring data in. So that was the first step. The second thing we did is we went to where we knew we wanted to do business. So we started off in the United States, and we had to go to every single state. So there's 51 Secretary of States, 50 states, and the Postal Service, and we had to directly integrate into every single one of those Secretary of States. Now, once you do one, two, three, then the next, 10 are easier, and the next 10 are easier. So the first one might take 3 months, and then it might take 2 months, and then it might take weeks to be able to get down with it, right? Because you learn the process, you learn what it looks like, and you get to do that. And so that was sort of it. We had to, partner, buy, and build all three of those things in the regions that we wanted to attack first. And then we continue to expand from there. And so there are places where we are the best. There are places maybe we're the second best, but in the general breadth of it, that's sort of what it took to be able to do. And then obviously we have a large payments background. We understood what it takes to underwrite small businesses. At Stax, we underwrote over 100,000 small businesses. We did over 40 billion of payment volume through our platform. And so we obviously have historical credibility in understanding what we had done. So leveraging that alongside with the foundational of our platform being built is what allowed us to have great capital sponsors. And so, when it comes to raising capital, and I'm sure people have a ton of questions around that, it's never easy, right? It's never easy. You have to have the right thesis. You have to have proof points. You have to understand the business. The market has to be big enough, all the things that we hear. But then you have to have conviction. You have to have the right partners. And so we were blessed. Obviously, when you have the success that we had last time around, it is easier for people to bet on us. And so I don't want to, take that for granted. But it did come with execution that we had done and preparation that we put in place to be able to go do these things now. And so to your point, it's like tactically, we had to do a lot of work first to be able to prove it. We had customers that were paying and signed. It wasn't just like this idea. You have to prove some of these points, and then people will get behind the strategy and the execution.
Mm-hmm. I have one very concrete regulatory question, or rather legal. I don't know. I guess it's regulatory. Would you say, relatively easy to get access to this data from the local authorities? What kind of checks did you have to go through?
Yeah, no, it's not. So every state, region, et cetera, have a variety of different things that they put in. So depending on the province there are GDPR certifications, there's SOC compliance you have to do. So there's a variety of just security and data privacy by itself is a huge hurdle you have to get through. Once you get through that hurdle, then it's how are you doing it? What's encrypted? What's masked? What does the customer have to do? Is it there's what's known as like KYC, know your customer data, KYB, know your business data. There's Patriot Act, FinCEN. There's like 50 other acronyms I could share with you. And you have to have data compliance, data architecture, how you display it. Is there authorization? Does a customer have to authorize you to have the data, or there's portions of data that you can show, you can't show? And so it gets very complex. And I think, we brought on some great people that had a history of doing it. And as I mentioned, in some places and regions, we partnered because it was someplace I was there, and it was, I don't call it easier, but at this point, it was the smarter move to partner with somebody that had already gone through the regulatory compliance needs for the ease of speed. And it may cost us more, but it may be the right path in those regions. And then some other regions, we totally built it out by ourselves. So it's a combination of those things that it takes to be able to do it. But yeah, I mean, just think about data privacy and security being probably the number one thing that we had to focus on to be able to get through a lot of these areas.
Yeah, I can imagine that it's quite complicated to go through all the 51 states in the US, but thinking about Europe and the level of data security that is applied here in every country, every particular market as a separate regulatory region. Did you go through the same process in Europe and in other regions?
Yeah, like I'd say the U.S. Is stringent, but definitely more liberal than I would say at least the
The
European
EU,
markets
yes.
are, and the European markets are very sensitive. I think in those markets we had a lot of partnerships. Like Plaid is a big partner of ours. Equifax is a big partner of ours. ZoomInfo is a big partner of ours, where they have a variety of data sets that are there. And so in those there's some regions and or countries that it was way easier to just go down that path. And so it's a combination. It's a mixture of all of those. There are some places that we do go directly to the province to be able to pull certain levels of information that you need. But it's a combination that you had to do. And absolutely, the European markets were and are just tougher, right? I think that's just the reality of the coverage there.
Mm-hmm. So what is your personal journey leading you to, as you grow this company? What do you want to make out of it? And
Yeah, look, I think personally, we want to provide all small business to have easier access to capital, easier access to, leverage their business to grow their business, understand it and grow it. To do that, we believe that it would be amazing if there was a global business credit score that you could assess every business in that way. However, to get there, you have to get the large institutions to first adopt the philosophy. So if I went to all the businesses and said, here's your business credit score, great for the business, but that doesn't mean they can leverage it to go do anything, right? So I can walk into the largest bank in the world and be like, oh, Sal told me at Worth that I have 100. Doesn't mean anything. So you have to go to the large institutions first for them to adopt the philosophy of onboarding these customers. And so the first place we started was every large institution, showing them the ease of collecting the information and how they can use this to assess the credit profile of this business. And as we've gained a ton of traction there, our network starts to build. Once our network starts to build of all of these customers, then it's easier to come back to the smaller business and say, hey, keep your profile updated, keep this stuff updated. So that way, when you do want to apply for a loan or do this, just one single button, you can use your Worth wallet or your Worth account and apply for it. You don't have to type in all your information. You don't have to go download your tax statements and upload your bank statements. Like, we have all of that for you. Just click one button and you can be done, and you can share it with them, and you can keep an assessment of understanding your own business and how to continue to grow your profile. And so for us, the long-term vision is, a centralized tool for small businesses to be able to have almost like your own wallet of information for your small business, and then have a credit risk assessment to really help you manage and grow that business.
Mm-hmm. And as a small business, how can someone get onboarded or are they automatically included as they're registered in their regional
Yeah,
business registry?
Yeah, so we have a small business applications coming out. So that's worthscore.com. So we have two areas. There's Worth AI, which is our enterprise solution self. So Worth is what we sell to enterprises, and then worthscore.com or WorthScore is what we sell to the small businesses. Now, we have not released the small business platform to date. All the small businesses get it as they go through whatever underwriting of whatever bank process they have. Our goal is next year to roll out the WorthScore to small businesses directly for them to actually access it, roll with it, do the things. As I mentioned, we just wanted the enterprises to adopt it first. We want them to be able to be the pioneers to lead, and then allow for the rest of the small business population to gain.
Mm-hmm. What is the appetite that you're seeing from enterprises and lending institutions?
Very great. I think we've surpassed all of our personal goals and or our financial goals for this year. So what we expect to do and what we continue to do. I think when you look around, enterprises want to be able to support small businesses. They want a better onboarding process. The way to think about it is, if you bought Netflix and you waited 2 weeks to watch a movie because you had to come install it, what's the point of buying it? Like, you buy Netflix and you watch a movie right away. That's what you want the experiences want to be, and banks want the same thing. So they don't like the fact that if you apply for a loan as a small business, it takes them 2-3 weeks of assessing this information, right? Like, how can they streamline that process? So I think everybody is looking at digitizing their onboarding experience, creating it so it's less information that the small business has to continue to enter that they don't even remember and or know. So how do you do those things? And so I think that's the combination of the appetite we see is, the businesses that want to innovate, that want to really drive technology and enable the small businesses are just eager to adopt new technology.
Mhm. And Sal, what are you looking for right now to grow your business? You have the financing, you have the interest, the appetite is there. What is needed to speed the whole process up?
At the end of the day, it's like the old age saying, like, it's still going to take 3 hours to bake a turkey. Like there's no shortcut. I can have two ovens. I can turn it to 500 degrees. Like it's still going to take 3 hours. And I think that's sort of the process. When you build a business, there are no shortcuts, right? Like hard work is the shortcut. And I'd say we have the appetite, we have the capital, but scaling the process takes time. You need customer feedback. You need to be able to iterate against a product. We have to adapt and grow with them, and they need to trust the scores in the process too, right? So I think it's just a level of scale. Now, do I think what we've done in 18, 24 months, somebody would take 6, 8 years to do? I do. But it's still a process, and you still have to turn every one of those rocks. It doesn't matter about credibility, it doesn't matter about all those things. When it comes to execution, you have to go execute it. And I think we're in the perfect stage of proving that. And now I think the market is starting to see that adoption, starting to see it. And we definitely believe we're already on a rocket ship, but we're starting to see a lot more momentum. And I think the next process will just be scale, right? It's going to be how do we continue to rinse and repeat the process and grow with these businesses.
Mhm. Do you feel aligned yet again with your purpose on on this venture?
I think so. I think there are definitely days, I question why I'm doing this all over again. But I think this time, once you remove a lot of the pressures, as I mentioned, like it's not about a paycheck, it's not about those things. I think you get to take bigger bets, right? I think this time around, we get to really lean in, and we are not playing small, right? We are really swinging for a global, like when you mentioned, 186 countries and your eyes pop up, you're like, wow, I can't believe you're in 106 countries and you're, 2 years old. I think it's just the way we invest is to think big, of where we are. And I think it allows us to be able to be broader and take bigger risks than we historically have. Now, they're calculated risk. We're thoughtful around it. We don't just, make decisions because we think it's cool. But I think this time around, for aligning to that purpose, it feels really nice to be able to give back to the small businesses and being able to really take a big bite of the apple this time around, to be able to show and prove that, not only have we done it once, we can do it again, but leave a legacy behind that we know can hopefully impact the world.
Mhm. Do you think that there will be um, any change to underwriting demand when asset tokenization starts being more prolific in all markets?
Absolutely, right? I think a lot of the digital age, whether you talk about stable coins and blockchain, and you have all these new technologies specifically entering the financial world, I think the disparity and the disconnection is happening more and more and more. You have more open banking regulation and rules. You have money transferring that's happening at a way more rapid rate than these things that are historical, just ledgers that used to be able to be utilized. I think when you start to see that, I think having something that can connect small businesses and specifically people that may not have all this information, right? A lot of the tool sets that we're talking about, unfortunately, are going to be given to the well-educated and or the stronger businesses. Like that cafe shop isn't the one participating in this stuff. And so
Mhm.
how do you enable them to be able to have access to these things and make sure that they are the ones that are not left behind, even in this market of fintech education, I would call it, that's still sort of going to be there. And so financial acumen and those things are just going to continue to put pressure. And so we feel like we're at the pioneers of trying to make sure that we keep that equal footing for everybody.
Mm. Sal, thank you so much. Any last closing words? Words of encouragement to entrepreneurs?
No, well, first of all, Serena, very nice to meet you, and thanks for everyone listening. Yeah, look, I think if you want to go to worthscore.com and sign up for a version of a beta product or try to get your own credit score, that's great. If you know any large businesses that do a ton of risk or underwriting, you'd be happy to refer them. But more than anything, just continue to share our story on social. And if there are any questions or if you're looking for a job, anything of the above, we're happy to continuously be a part of that story. And really just appreciate the time.
Thank you so much. It was a true pleasure, and all the best in developing this revolutionary company.
Thanks so much, Rena.